Before beginning the story, I'd like to say a big thank you for visiting my new channel. I'm going to be uploading alternate history-related stories every single day. If that sounds good, be sure to leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. It means a whole lot when just getting started. I hope you enjoy the story. I've been giving tours at Angkor Wat for 8 years. I know every corridor, every carving, every spot where the morning light hits the stone in a way that makes tourists reach for their cameras. I know which passages get crowded at midday and which hidden routes can save you 20 minutes of walking. I know where the best views are, where the quietest corners hide, where you can stand and feel like you're the first person to discover this place in centuries. My name is Sorn. I'm 36 years old. I was born in a refugee camp in Thailand, grew up in California, and came back to Cambodia in my late 20s to reconnect with a heritage I barely understood. I never planned to stay. I definitely never planned to become a tour guide. But something about this place got under my skin. Angkor Wat felt like home in a way that California never did, even though I'd never set foot here before I was 27. Now, I'm not sure what it feels like. Home isn't the right word anymore. The temple complex is massive, over 400 acres, the largest religious monument in the world. Most people know it from photographs, that iconic shot of the 5 towers reflected in a pond at sunrise. But photographs don't capture the scale of it. The endless corridors, the thousands of carvings covering every surface, the way you can walk for hours and still not see everything, still find corners you've never noticed before. I always loved that about it. The inexhaustible complexity, the feeling that no matter how well you knew the temple, it still had secrets to share. I don't love it anymore. The restoration work has been going on for decades. International teams from France, Japan, India, all working to clean the centuries of grime from the carvings, stabilize the structures, prevent further decay. It's important work, necessary work. The temple was falling apart, consumed by jungle, eroded by time and weather, and millions of tourist feet. Without restoration, it would eventually collapse into rubble. Recently, the work has accelerated. New funding from UNESCO, new technology, a major push to make the temple more accessible, more tourist-friendly. They've cleared vegetation from passages that were blocked for decades. They've installed signage at every major intersection. They've created detailed maps and distributed them to every visitor. Last month, they put up QR codes that let you navigate the complex on your smartphone. The temple is easier to get around than it's ever been in its history. That's supposed to be a good thing. I'm not sure it is. It started about 3 months ago. Small things at first. I'd arrive early in the morning, before the tourists, to walk my usual routes and prepare for the day. One morning, I was in the Eastern Gallery, the one with the famous bas-relief showing the churning of the ocean of milk. I've walked that corridor thousands of times. I could do it blindfolded. But that morning, something felt wrong. The air had a strange quality to it, heavy and still, with a smell I didn't recognize. Incense, maybe, but with something underneath it, something older. And I had the strangest feeling that someone had just been there, that I'd missed them by seconds. I could almost feel the displacement of air, the warmth of a body that had just passed through. I saw no one. The temple was empty. The guards hadn't even opened the gates yet. I told myself I was imagining things. Old temples are full of strange atmospheres and odd smells. It didn't mean anything. But over the following weeks, I noticed more. Footsteps in empty corridors, a shuffling gait that echoed off the stone in a way that didn't sound quite right, movement in my peripheral vision, shadows that didn't match any person I could see, scuff marks on floors that had been clean minutes before, like something heavy had been dragged across the stone. Something was moving through the temple, something I never saw directly. I asked some of the other guides if they'd noticed anything strange. Most of them shrugged it off. Old temples make weird noises. The stone expands and contracts with temperature changes. Shadows play tricks, especially in a place this complex. Nothing to worry about. But one guide, an older woman named Chaya, who'd worked here for over 20 years, gave me a look I couldn't read. She said the temple had been different lately. Restless, she called it. She said her grandmother used to tell stories about this place, stories that weren't in any history book, weren't in any tourist brochure. She didn't elaborate, but she told me to be careful in the inner corridors, especially the ones they'd recently cleared. A few days later, a tour group reported a strange experience. They'd been in the central tower, the highest point of the temple, when they got separated from their guide. Simple enough, it happens sometimes. But they said they wandered for nearly an hour trying to find their way back, even though the route should have been straightforward. They'd just walked it, they knew the way. But the corridors seemed to change, they said. Passages they'd just come through looked different when they tried to retrace their steps. Carvings they didn't remember seeing. Turns that shouldn't have been there. And they all felt like something was following them, watching them, getting closer every time they turned a corner. I started paying attention to where the incidents happened. The strange sounds, the lost tourists, the unsettling feelings. They clustered around areas that had been recently restored. Corridors cleared of vegetation. Passages reopened after being blocked for decades. Sections where new signage made navigation easier. The pattern was unmistakable. The more accessible an area became, the more wrong it felt. I went to see Chaya one evening after work. I brought food and palm wine, the traditional offering when you want to ask an elder for their knowledge. She lived in a small house near the town, surrounded by fruit trees and chickens. She seemed to know why I'd come before I said anything. She told me what her grandmother had told her, stories passed down and through generations of women in her family. The real history of Angkor Wat, not the version in the textbooks or the tour scripts. The temple wasn't built as a place of worship, she said. It was built as a prison. Something came to the Khmer Empire in the 12th century. She didn't know what it was or where it came from. The old stories didn't say. They only said that it was terrible, that it couldn't be killed or driven away, and that the king's wisest advisors devised a desperate plan. They would build a structure so vast and so complex that the thing could be lured inside and never find its way out. A labyrinth, a trap made of stone. I thought about the temple's layout, the endless corridors that seemed to loop back on themselves, the identical chambers that could disorient anyone, the carvings that covered every surface, overwhelming the senses, making it impossible to remember which passage led where. I'd always thought the complexity was artistic, spiritual, a reflection of cosmic order. Chaya said it was strategic. Every element of the design served the containment, the repetitive layouts, the confusing passages, the overwhelming visual noise of the carvings. The central tower wasn't a holy place, she said. It was bait, a focal point that drew the thing inward, deeper into the maze, further from any exit. And for centuries, after the initial construction, the Khmer kept adding to the temple. More corridors, more chambers, more carvings. Each addition made the interior more confusing, the layout more impossible to navigate. They weren't building a monument. They were strengthening a cage. When the empire fell and the jungle consumed the temple, Chaya said, that wasn't neglect. It was the final layer of the trap. The trees and vines created new obstacles. Roots blocked passages. Vegetation changed the layout in ways that even the builders couldn't have predicted. The thing inside became even more lost, even more confused, even more deeply trapped. For 800 years, it had been wandering the maze, lost, disoriented, unable to find its way out. But now the restoration was undoing everything. Every cleared path helped the thing navigate. Every reopened passage gave it new routes to explore. Every sign, every map, every QR code taught it the layout of its prison. It was learning, following the tour groups, memorizing the routes, getting closer to the exits every day. I didn't want to believe her. I'm not superstitious. I don't believe in spirits or curses or things that go bump in the night. I believe in stone and mortar and the weight of history, things I can see and touch. But I couldn't explain the footsteps in empty corridors, the lost tourists who swore the passages changed around them, the feeling of something following, something watching, something getting closer. So I did something stupid. I hid in the temple after closing. It's strictly forbidden, of course. But I've worked here for 8 years. I know every corner, every shadow, every guard rotation. It wasn't difficult to find a hiding spot and wait until everyone left. The temple at night was beautiful. Moonlight streamed through gaps in the stone, casting silver light across the ancient carvings. The air was cool and still. I walked my usual routes, seeing nothing out of the ordinary, and I started to feel foolish. What was I expecting to find? A monster lurking in the shadows? Then I heard the footsteps. Behind me, shuffling, slow, the same sound I'd been hearing for weeks, but louder now, closer. I turned and saw nothing but empty corridor, moonlight on stone. I walked faster. The footsteps matched my pace. I turned down a side passage, one of the old routes that hadn't been restored. Vegetation still choked the floor. The signage hadn't reached this section yet. The footsteps behind me hesitated, slowed, like something unsure of the path. Then they followed. I caught a glimpse of something at the far end of a long corridor. Not a clear view, just an impression of size, of wrongness, limbs that didn't bend the way limbs should bend, a shape that didn't match anything human or animal. It was standing at an intersection where the restoration team had installed new directional signs last month. It was looking at the signs, studying them, learning from them. Then it turned toward me. It didn't move fast. It didn't need to. It had the patience of something that had been waiting for 800 years and knew it didn't need to hurry anymore. I ran. I abandoned the restored paths and plunged into the older sections, the confusing passages where vegetation still grew and the layout still made no sense. I got lost almost immediately, which terrified me. I never get lost here. This is my temple. I know it better than I know my own body. But I also realized the thing behind me was getting lost too. Its footsteps were hesitant, uncertain. It would start down one passage, stop, turn back, try another. The old maze still worked. The confusion that had trapped it for centuries was still effective in the sections that hadn't been cleared. I stumbled through the darkness for what felt like hours, cutting myself on stones and roots, tripping over debris. I had no idea where I was. I just kept moving, kept choosing the most confusing paths, kept diving deeper into the sections where the restoration hadn't reached. I found an exit as dawn was breaking, one of the small side gates that tourists never use. I collapsed on the grass outside, shaking, gasping, covered in scrapes and bruises. I was alive. I'd made it out. But I'd seen it. I knew it was real. And I knew Chaya's grandmother had been telling the truth. In the weeks that followed, I watched the restoration continue. New funding meant new projects. More corridors cleared. More passages reopened. A new visitor's map distributed to every tourist, color-coded and detailed, showing clear routes through every section of the temple. More QR codes installed. A new app launched that provided turn-by-turn navigation through the complex. The temple was becoming a place where no one could get lost. That was the goal. That was what the restoration teams were proud of. They had no idea what they were doing. A tourist went missing. A solo traveler from Germany, last seen entering the central tower. The search went on for 3 days. They never found her. A week later, another disappearance. A Japanese man traveling with his wife. She turned a corner and he was gone. Then a young couple from Australia. Then a tour guide. Then a guard. The authorities blamed accidents, hidden drops, unstable structures. They increased safety measures. They added barriers to dangerous areas. They installed more signage to keep people from wandering off the approved paths. They were making it easier to navigate. They were helping the thing learn faster. I tried to warn people. I talked to the restoration teams, to my supervisors, to anyone who would listen. I told them about the footsteps, the disappearances, the thing I'd seen in the corridor. I told them about Chaya's stories, about the temple being a prison, about the restoration undoing centuries of containment. They thought I was crazy. Of course they did. I would have thought I was crazy too a few months ago. One of my supervisors suggested I take some time off, see a doctor, get some rest. The stress of the job, he said. It happens to everyone eventually. I didn't take time off. Instead, I snuck into the temple at night again. I found the thing much closer to the outer walls than before. It had learned the restored sections. It moved through them quickly, confidently, only slowing when it reached the areas where the vegetation hadn't been cleared. Those areas were shrinking every month. Every week, the restoration teams pushed further into the complex, opening new passages, installing new signs. The thing was learning faster than they were restoring. But they were giving it everything it needed, every map, every sign, every cleared path. It wouldn't be lost much longer. I thought about trying to stop the restoration, sabotage, destroying the signage, blocking the cleared passages with debris. But it would be temporary at best. They'd just rebuild. They'd install new signs, clear the passages again. The funding was committed. The international teams were dedicated. The Cambodian government needed the tourist revenue. No one was going to halt a multi-million-dollar preservation project because a tour guide claimed there was something evil in the temple. I quit my job last month. I couldn't keep doing it. I couldn't keep leading tour groups through the temple, showing them the clear paths, teaching them the routes that the thing in the maze was learning to follow. Every tour I gave was a lesson for the prisoner. Every group of tourists was a demonstration of how to navigate the trap. I moved back to the town. I got a job at a restaurant. I try not to think about the temple, but I can't stay away completely. I find myself going back at night, standing outside the walls, watching and listening. Sometimes I hear the footsteps inside, shuffling, slow, but more confident now, more purposeful, less like something lost and more like something that knows exactly where it's going. The disappearances have continued. The authorities have stopped publicizing them, worried about scaring off tourists. But I hear the stories. A person here, a person there, always in the inner corridors, always in the sections that used to be confusing but aren't anymore. The restoration teams keep working. The paths keep getting clearer. The maps keep getting more detailed. The app just released an update with improved navigation and real-time location tracking. I stood outside the temple this morning, watching the first tour groups of the day stream through the main gate. Thousands of people armed with smartphones and maps and QR codes. Not one of them will get lost today. The temple has never been easier to navigate. I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to tell them to throw away their maps, delete their apps, wander without direction, get lost, stay lost. Keep the maze alive by refusing to learn its patterns. But they wouldn't understand. Nobody understands. They see a beautiful ancient monument being lovingly preserved for future generations. They see international cooperation and cultural heritage and the triumph of human dedication over the forces of decay. They don't see the cage being dismantled, bar by bar. They don't see the prisoner learning the layout of its prison, getting closer to freedom every day. Angkor Wat was designed as a containment site, the most elaborate trap ever built, meant to imprison something so terrible that our ancestors spent centuries making it impossible to escape. For 800 years, it worked. The thing inside wandered the endless corridors, lost in a maze of stone and vegetation, unable to find its way out. We thought we were preserving a monument. We've been drawing it a map. I don't know what happens when it finally learns the layout completely, when it walks through the cleared passages and follows the signs to the exit and steps out into a world that doesn't believe it exists. I don't know where it will go or what it will do, but I know it's getting closer. Every day, every tour group, every new sign installed, and every new path cleared. The thing that's been trapped for 800 years is almost free, and there's nothing I can do to stop it.